He owed the vampire queen everything after she saved his daughter's life. She expected obedience. Instead, he offered his own blood when assassins came for her. Now she's turned him into something new, half human, half hers. And neither one knows how to let go. The rain hammered against the windshield like bullets as Elias Crane's 15-year-old Honda sputtered through the flooded streets of Portland. His scrubs were still damp with sweat from the double shift at Cedar Grove Hospital, and his eyes burned from exhaustion. 16 hours. 2 cardiac arrests, 1 difficult intubation, and a kid who'd swallowed a toy car. Just another Tuesday. But Tuesdays paid the bills. Most of them, anyway. His phone buzzed in the cup holder, another collection notice. Elias didn't bother looking. He knew the number by heart. What he didn't know was how he'd make this month's payment to the blood bank. Not the regular kind where you donate plasma for $40. The other kind. The kind that came with contracts written in languages that predated English, signed in desperation at 3 a.m. in a hospital chapel while your daughter's heart monitor flatlined. The kind that came with teeth. Elias pulled into the cracked parking lot of Riverside Apartments, killed the engine, and sat in the sudden silence. Through his rearview mirror, he could see Mrs. Chen's apartment window, the 3rd floor where Lila was sleeping, hopefully. The babysitter had texted an hour ago. All good. She did her homework. Ate dinner. Asked about you. His daughter. 7 years old. Brown eyes that looked just like her mother's. Sarah had been gone for 3 years now. Cancer, quick and cruel. The medical bills had buried them. Then Lila got sick. Leukemia. The universe apparently had a dark sense of humor. That's when the man in the black suit appeared. Elias climbed out of the car, his knees protesting. 34 years old, and he felt 50. He was halfway to the building entrance when he noticed the vehicle parked in the visitor spot. A black Mercedes S-Class, pristine despite the rain, with windows tinted darker than legal limits allowed. His stomach dropped. Mr. Crane. The voice came from behind him. Elias spun around to find 2 figures standing in the rain, a man and a woman, both impossibly beautiful, both completely dry despite the downpour. The rain seemed to part around them like they existed in their own private bubble of reality. The man wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Elias's car. His skin was pale as moonlight, his hair black and pulled back in a neat ponytail. The woman beside him wore crimson. A long coat that swept the ground, her platinum blonde hair cascading over her shoulders. "We need to talk about your account," the woman said. Her voice was silk and razors. "I'm only 2 weeks late," Elias said, hating how his voice shook. "The contract said I had 30 days. The contract has been transferred," the man interrupted. His accent was vaguely European, impossible to place. "House Morvain has acquired your debt from the Blackwell Syndicate. New terms apply." Elias's hands clenched into fists. "You can't just change the terms. I have rights." The woman laughed. It wasn't a pleasant sound. "Rights? Mr. Crane, you signed those away when you begged Marcus Blackwell to save your daughter. Did you read the fine print? The clause about debt transfer? The part about obligations subject to reassignment at creditor's discretion?" He had read it. At 3 a.m, with Lila's doctor saying they were out of options, with experimental treatment costing $300,000 that no insurance would cover, he'd read every word. And he'd signed anyway. Because what else could a father do? "What do you want?" Elias asked quietly. "Not us," the man said. "Her Majesty. Queen Seraphine has taken a personal interest in your case." The world seemed to tilt. Elias had heard whispers about the vampire hierarchy, the houses and courts and ancient bloodlines. Everyone who dealt with them heard stories. But the queen? No one saw the queen and lived to talk about it. She was a myth, a name spoken in hushed tones, a shadow that ruled from behind layers of intermediaries. "Why?" The word came out as barely a whisper. The woman smiled, revealing teeth just a bit too perfect, too white, too sharp. "That's a question for Her Majesty herself. Our car is waiting. You'll come with us. Now." I need to check on my daughter. Lila is fine, the man said. We've been watching her apartment for 3 hours. Mrs. Chun is reading her a bedtime story. Charlotte's Web, Chapter 9-inch. Ice flooded Elias's veins. They'd been watching. They knew where Lila was, who watched her, what she was reading. The message was clear. Cooperation wasn't optional. If I go with you, Elias said slowly, Lila stays safe. That's the deal. Whatever the Queen wants, whatever I have to do, Lila doesn't get touched. The woman's expression softened almost imperceptibly. The Queen doesn't harm children, Mr. Crane. She has many faults, but cruelty to innocence isn't among them. You have our word. The word of vampires, Elias said bitterly. Better than the word of humans, she replied. We, at least, keep our promises. Now get in the car. The Mercedes's interior smelled like leather and something else, something old and metallic that made Elias think of ancient churches and darker things. The woman drove while the man sat beside Elias in the back, close enough that Elias could feel the unnatural coldness radiating from him. They drove east, away from the city center, toward the industrial district where old warehouses crouched like sleeping giants. But they didn't stop at the warehouses. They kept going, climbing into the hills, until the road became private and the trees closed in overhead. Then Elias saw it. The crimson keep rose from the hillside like something from another century, all Gothic spires and iron gates, marble walls that gleamed even in darkness. It shouldn't exist. This was Portland, Oregon, not Transylvania. But there it stood, impossible and real, lit by torches that burned with flames too red to be natural. Welcome to court, the man said as the gates swung open on silent hinges. Try not to embarrass yourself. The Queen values composure. They led him through corridors lined with portraits of pale figures in clothing that spanned centuries. Elias saw doublets and crinolines, Victorian gowns and flapper dresses, all the way up to modern suits. The same faces appeared across different eras. These creatures didn't just live in history, they were history. Finally, they reached 2 massive wooden doors carved with scenes Elias didn't want to examine too closely. The man pushed them open, and Elias stepped into the throne room. It was smaller than he expected. Intimate, almost. Marble floors reflected the light from dozens of candles. The walls were lined with books, ancient tomes that probably predated the printing press. And at the far end, on a throne of dark wood and silver, sat Queen Seraphine Morvain. She wasn't what Elias expected. No fangs showing, no dramatic cape, no blood-red eyes. She looked human. Almost. She appeared to be in her early 30s, with auburn hair that fell in waves past her shoulders. Her dress was simple, black, elegant, nothing ostentatious. But her eyes, God, her eyes. They were the color of amber and ancient beyond measure. When they fixed on Elias, he felt like she was reading every secret he'd ever kept. Mr. Crane, she said. Her voice was surprisingly warm, with a slight southern accent that caught him off guard. Thank you for coming. I didn't have much choice, Elias replied before he could stop himself. The corner of her mouth lifted. No, I suppose you didn't. Marcus and Celeste can be persuasive. She gestured to his escorts, who bowed and retreated to the shadows. Please sit. We have much to discuss. A chair appeared, literally appeared, behind Elias. He sat because his legs were shaking. I'm going to be direct, Seraphine said, leaning forward. Your debt is substantial. $300,000 for Lila's treatment, plus interest, plus the transfer fees. At your current payment rate, you'll be in debt for 67 years. You're mortal. You'll die before it's paid. I know, Elias said quietly. I'm offering you an alternative. She stood and walked toward him. I need a daylight companion. Someone who can move in the human world during hours I cannot. Someone who can be my eyes, my hands, my voice when the sun rises. In exchange, your debt disappears. All of it. Immediately. Elias stared at her. Why me? Because you're desperate enough to say yes, skilled enough to be useful, and principled enough not to betray me. She stopped in front of him. I've read your file, Elias. Ex-army medic. Deployed to Afghanistan twice. Honorable discharge. Paramedic for 8 years. Single father. You pay your bills on time, help your neighbors, donate to the food bank despite barely affording groceries. You're exactly what I need. I'm not special, Elias said. No, Seraphine agreed. You're ordinary. That's what makes you perfect. No one expects anything from an ordinary man. She extended her hand. Her fingernails were painted dark purple, and on her ring fingers sat a silver band carved with symbols that hurt to look at directly. Do we have a deal, Elias Crane? He thought of Lila. Her laugh. Her homework spread across their kitchen table. The way she still asked for one more bedtime story, even though she was getting too old for it. He thought about the bills stacked on his counter, the collection calls, the constant weight of impossible debt. He thought about what he had to lose versus what he'd already lost. Elias reached out and shook the Queen's hand. Her skin was cold as winter. We have a deal, he said. Seraphine smiled, a real smile this time, one that reached her ancient eyes. Excellent. Welcome to my service, Elias. Your new life begins at sunrise. As he sat there, hand still clasped in hers, Elias wondered what the hell he'd just agreed to. He'd find out soon enough. Elias woke to silence, so complete it felt like being buried alive. His eyes snapped open, and for a disorienting moment, he couldn't remember where he was. The ceiling above him was painted with frescoes, angels and demons locked in eternal battle, their faces twisted in expressions that seemed to shift in the candlelight. The bed beneath him was absurdly soft, nothing like the lumpy mattress in his apartment. Then it all came rushing back. The Queen, the deal, the handshake that sealed his fate. He sat up, his paramedic instincts cataloging everything, mahogany furniture that belonged in a museum, crimson drapes heavy enough to block out nuclear fallout, a fireplace carved from black marble with flames that burned without any visible wood. The clock on the nightstand read 4:47 a.m. He'd been unconscious for hours. No, not unconscious. He remembered Marcus offering him wine, remembered the strange sweet taste, remembered his vision blurring. They'd drugged him. Of course they had. Can't have the new servant knowing the route to the keep. A knock at the door made him jump. Mr. Crane? Her Majesty requests your presence. It was a new voice, male, younger sounding than Marcus. Elias looked down at himself. Someone had changed his clothes while he was out. Instead of his damp scrubs, he wore black slacks and a white button-down shirt that fit perfectly. The thought of vampire hands undressing him while he was drugged made his skin crawl, but he pushed the feeling down. This was his life now. Better get used to it. Coming, he called out. The servant waiting outside looked about 19, though Elias was learning that appearances meant nothing here. The boy's name tag read Thomas. He had friendly eyes and a nervous energy that seemed almost human. This way, sir. The Queen is in the East Gallery. She's been waiting. They walked through corridors that seemed to go on forever, each one more elaborate than the last. Elias passed rooms filled with artifacts, suits of armor, ancient weapons, paintings of battles he didn't recognize. In one room, he glimpsed a piano. In another, walls lined with maps showing countries that no longer existed. How long have you worked here? Elias asked Thomas. The boy glanced back, surprised. 3 years, sir. Since I was turned. They turned you at 16? 17, actually.
Car accident.
I was dying. The Queen gave me a choice. Thomas's expression grew distant. I said yes. My family thinks I'm dead. It's better that way. Before Elias could process that tragedy, they arrived at a set of glass doors that opened onto a gallery bathed in pre-dawn light. And there, standing at the window watching the sky lighten, was Seraphine. She'd changed clothes, now wearing dark jeans and a simple gray sweater that made her look almost normal. Almost. Until you saw how still she stood, how she didn't breathe, how the approaching sunlight made her skin begin to pale even further. "Thank you, Thomas," she said without turning around. The boy bowed and left, closing the doors behind him. "You're up early," Elias said, then felt stupid. Did vampires sleep? Did they need to? "I'm up late," Seraphine corrected, still watching the sky. "I haven't slept yet. Won't until the sun fully rises. Then I'll be dormant until dusk." She finally turned to face him. In the growing light, he could see faint lines around her eyes, the only hint of her true age. "I wanted to speak with you before then, to explain what you've agreed to."
"I'm listening."
She gestured to a leather sofa. They both sat, and Seraphine produced a folder thick with documents. "Your role is simple in theory, complex in execution. You'll attend meetings I cannot, board meetings, charity events, anything that happens during daylight hours. You'll represent House Morvaine's interests in the human business world. I'm a paramedic, not a businessman. You're intelligent and you learn quickly. I've seen your military records. You picked up Pashto in 3 months. You can learn corporate speak." She slid a document across to him. "This is your new identity. Elias Crane, special consultant to Morvaine Industries. Salary, 200,000 annually plus benefits. Your daughter's medical expenses are now covered under the company health plan. Full coverage, no caps, no exceptions." Elias stared at the number. 200,000. That was more than he'd made in the last 4 years combined. "What's the catch?" Seraphine's smile was sad. "The catch is that you're now part of our world. The vampire courts aren't just about blood and darkness, Elias. We're business people, politicians, power brokers. We've been manipulating human society for millennia. You'll see things that will change how you view everything. And once you see them, you can never unsee them." "Like what?" "Like the fact that 30% of Portland City Council are vampires or thralls. Like how House Morvaine owns controlling interest in 4 major pharmaceutical companies. Like how the random crime waves that sweep through cities every few decades are actually feeding frenzies that got out of hand." She stood and walked back to the window. The sun was cresting the horizon now, and Elias could swear he saw her skin begin to smoke slightly. "Tonight, you'll attend your first court session. You'll see how we really operate. You'll meet the nobles who think humans are cattle. You'll understand why I need someone like you, someone who remembers what it means to be mortal. And if I fail, if I embarrass you in front of your court?" Seraphine turned, and her eyes had changed, the amber now flecked with red. "Then your debt returns with interest, and Lila's treatment stops. I'm not a charity, Elias. I'm giving you an opportunity. Don't waste it." The sun broke fully over the horizon. Seraphine gasped, stumbling away from the window. Smoke rose from her exposed skin, and the smell of burning flesh filled the gallery. Elias's training kicked in before conscious thought. He lunged forward, grabbed her arm, and pulled her away from the light. His hand touched her skin and recoiled. She was cold as ice and getting colder. "Get me to the darkness," she whispered, her voice weakening.
"The door."
"Behind you." He half-carried, half-dragged her to a hidden door in the paneling. It opened into a windowless chamber, her bedroom, he realized. The moment they crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut, and the room plunged into absolute darkness. Seraphine collapsed against him, and for a moment, they were just 2 people holding each other in the dark. He could feel her trembling, could hear her ragged breathing, or whatever vampires did that approximated breathing. "Thank you," she whispered. "You didn't have to help." "Yes, I did," Elias replied. "It's what I do." In the darkness, he felt her smile against his shoulder. "Perhaps I chose better than I knew." Then she pulled away, and he heard her moving deeper into the chamber.
"Go. Rest.
Tonight, your real education begins." And Elias. "Yes. Welcome to the court. Try not to die." The door opened behind him, spilling in artificial light. Thomas stood there, eyes wide with concern. As Elias left, he glanced back once. In the shadows of her chamber, Seraphine's eyes glowed like dying embers. He'd just saved the queen's life. Something told him that would matter more than he could possibly understand. Elias spent the day in a fog of exhaustion and anxiety. Thomas had shown him back to his room, his permanent room now, apparently, and left him with a tablet containing essential reading materials. The files were corporate profiles, financial reports, and something called the Daylight Protocol, a human's guide to vampire court politics. Elias tried to read it, made it through 3 pages before his eyes crossed, and he fell asleep sitting up. He dreamed of Lila, of her asking where Daddy went, of Sarah telling him he'd made a terrible mistake. When he woke, it was 2:37 p.m., and his phone was ringing.
Daddy.
Lila's voice was pure sunshine. Mrs. Chen said you had to go on a work trip. Are you okay? Elias's throat tightened.
I'm fine, sweetheart.
How are you feeling? Good. I made a drawing of a dragon in art class. Can I show you when you get home? Home. His tiny apartment with water stains on the ceiling and neighbors who fought at 3 a.m. Except that wasn't his home anymore, was it? According to the documents Seraphine had given him, he'd be moving to a company residence by the end of the week. Somewhere safe. Somewhere monitored. Of course you can show me. I'll call you tonight before bed, okay? Promise. Promise. After she hung up, Elias sat staring at his phone. His daughter's face smiled at him from the lock screen, gap-toothed and happy, taken 2 weeks before her diagnosis. Before everything went to hell. He was doing this for her. He had to remember that. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. This time it was Celeste, the platinum-haired vampire from last night. She looked immaculate in a navy pantsuit, every inch the corporate executive. Time to earn your salary, Mr. Crane. You have 4 hours to prepare for tonight's charity gala. We've arranged for a stylist, a media coach, and a very detailed briefing. The Queen expects perfection. I thought I was her daylight representative. Why do I need to attend a night event? Celeste's smile was sharp. Because tonight isn't about business. It's about introducing you to vampire society. Consider it your debut. Every noble in the Pacific Northwest will be there, watching, judging, waiting for you to fail. She stepped closer. Some of them bet heavily that you wouldn't survive your first week. Don't make me lose money. The next 4 hours were a blur of controlled chaos. The stylist, a flamboyant vampire named Jean-Pierre, dressed Elias in a custom tuxedo that probably cost more than his car. You have good shoulders, Jean-Pierre declared. Military bearing. We can work with this. But darling, your hands. These are working man's hands. We'll need to do something about the calluses. The media coach, a stern woman named Victoria who may or may not have been human, drilled him on proper responses. When they ask how you came to work for the Queen, you say, Her Majesty recognized my unique qualifications. When they ask about your family, you say, that's personal. When they insult you, and they will, you smile and say nothing. Silence is power, Mr. Crane. The briefing was the worst part. Marcus sat him down with a thick dossier containing photos and backgrounds of every major vampire noble. Lord Calith of House Blackthorn, ambitious, cruel, wanted Seraphine's throne. Lady Vivian of House Ashmore, ancient, calculating, controlled most of Seattle's tech industry. Count Dmitri of House Volkov, Russian, traditional, believed humans were only good for feeding. Avoid Dmitri at all costs, Marcus warned. He's challenged the Queen's progressive policies for decades. He'd love to see her humiliated by her choice of human companion. By the time the sun set, Elias's head was spinning with names, faces, and social landmines. Seraphine came to his room at precisely 8 p.m. She stood in the doorway, and Elias forgot how to breathe. She wore a gown the color of fresh blood, crimson silk that flowed like water, with a neckline that was elegant without being revealing. Her auburn hair was swept up, revealing a neck so pale it seemed to glow. Around her throat was a choker of black diamonds that probably cost more than his entire life. You clean up well, she said, her eyes appraising him with something that might have been approval. You look, Elias struggled for words that wouldn't sound stupid. Queenly. She laughed, a genuine sound that transformed her face. Diplomatic.
Good.
You'll need that tonight, she offered her arm. Shall we? Our car is waiting. The gala was held at the Sentinel Hotel's Grand Ballroom, rented out for the evening by something called the Pacific Northwest Blood Council to any human who happened to see the invitation. It would appear to be a charity fundraiser for blood disease research. Technically true, Elias supposed. Just not the kind of research that helped humans. The ballroom took his breath away. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured light across hundreds of vampires in evening wear, all of them inhumanly beautiful, all of them pretending to be human. Servers circulated with champagne flutes filled with something too dark to be wine. A string quartet played Mozart in the corner. Everything looked perfectly normal. Except for the eyes. When Elias looked closely, every single person in the room had eyes that reflected light like an animal's. Stay close, Seraphine murmured. Don't drink anything. Don't accept food from anyone. And if someone tries to touch you, step behind me immediately. Why would? Your Majesty, a voice cut through the crowd like a blade.
How?
Unexpected to see you here with a pet. The speaker was a tall man with silver hair and features that suggested Eastern European ancestry. Count Dmitri. Even without the briefing, Elias would have recognized the contempt in his voice. Seraphine's smile never wavered. Count Dmitri. Still clinging to outdated terminology, I see. This is Elias Crane, my daylight consultant. Elias, Count Dmitri hasn't adapted to anything new since the French Revolution. Dmitri's eyes, pale gray and cold, fixed on Elias. A consultant. How modern. Tell me, human, do you consult on which vein tastes sweetest? The crowd around them had gone quiet. Everyone was watching, waiting to see how the Queen's new human would handle his first test. Elias felt his army training kick in, the same calm that had gotten him through firefights in Kandahar. He met Dmitri's gaze, without flinching. I consult on matters that require daylight and a pulse count. Two things you're unfortunately lacking. The silence that followed was absolute. Then someone laughed. A woman in emerald green, Lady Vivian, Elias recognized. Her laughter triggered others. Within seconds, half the ballroom was chuckling while Dmitri's face went through several interesting shades of pale. Seraphine's hand tightened on his arm. Not in anger, in warning. They'd won this round, but they'd also made an enemy. Shall we circulate? Seraphine said smoothly, leading him away. I believe the auction is about to start. As they walked, she leaned close to his ear. That was either very brave or very stupid. I haven't decided which yet, Elias admitted. Neither have I, but there was something in her voice that sounded almost like pride.
Come.
Let me introduce you to the nobles who won't try to kill you on sight. The night, Elias realized, was just beginning. And he'd already made one powerful vampire want him dead. He really hoped Seraphine's protection was as absolute as she'd promised. The auction turned out to be exactly what Elias feared, and worse than he'd imagined. They were auctioning experiences, not objects. A weekend at a European castle. A private concert by a musician who'd supposedly been retired for 30 years. An evening of consultation with a renowned human chef who would prepare a 7-course meal tailored to specific dietary requirements. Elias understood the euphemism. The chef would be dinner and dessert. Does he know? Elias whispered to Seraphine as they watched a vampire bid 50,000 for the chef's services. Of course. He's a thrall, a human who serves willingly in exchange for money, protection, and the occasional indulgence. She said it so casually, like she was discussing a business transaction. The venom causes euphoria. Some humans get addicted to it. Elias felt sick. That's predatory. That's survival. Seraphine's voice was harder now. We don't kill anymore, Elias. Not openly. The blood accords of 1923 forbade it. But we still need to feed. Thralls are a compromise. They volunteer, they're compensated, and they're protected by our laws. It's more than humans offer their own vulnerable. She had a point, but it didn't make him feel better. The auction continued. A vintage wine collection that definitely wasn't wine. An introduction to select members of a hospital's blood bank staff. A glamoured evening where a group of humans would forget everything that happened but wake up anemic and rich. Then Lord Caliph took the stage. He was younger than Elias expected, appearing maybe 40, with dark hair and a smile that belonged on a shark. His tuxedo was immaculate, his cufflinks were rubies, and his presence commanded attention in a way that made even other vampires straighten. "My lords and ladies," Caliph began, his voice smooth as poisoned honey. "Our final item tonight is special. A demonstration of the old ways. A reminder of why we are apex predators, not negotiators." Seraphine stiffened beside Elias. He wouldn't dare. But Caliph was already gesturing to the side entrance. Two of his servants wheeled in a large covered cage. The crowd murmured with anticipation. "Some say we've grown soft," Caliph continued. "That our queen's progressive policies have made us weak. That we've forgotten what it means to be vampire." He gripped the cage's cover. "Tonight, I remind you." He pulled the cover away. Inside was a human man, maybe 30 years old, gagged and bound. His eyes were wild with terror, and even from across the room, Elias could see the bite marks covering his neck and arms.
Fresh wounds. Dozens of them.
"This volunteer has agreed to demonstrate traditional feeding practices," Caliph announced.
No glamour. No pretense.
Just the pure, honest relationship between predator and prey. "Stop this," Seraphine's voice cut through the ballroom like a whip. She released Elias's arm and strode forward. "This violates the accords. That man is terrified. He didn't volunteer for anything." Caliph's smile widened. "He signed a contract, Your Majesty. Quite legal. Perhaps you'd like to review it?" "Oh, but wait. You've been so busy with your human pet that you've neglected your duties. This contract was filed and approved by the council 3 days ago." The crowd was enthralled now. This wasn't just about feeding, it was a political power play. Caliph was challenging Seraphine's authority in front of every noble in the region. Seraphine's hands clenched into fists. "Release him."
Now.
"Or what?" Caliph stepped closer to the cage. "Will you punish me for following the laws your own council approved? Will you show everyone here that you value human comfort over vampire tradition?" The man in the cage made a muffled sound of pure terror. His eyes found Elias, pleading. Elias had seen that look before. In Kandahar, in the ER, in Lila's hospital room. The look of someone who knew they were going to die. His body moved before his brain caught up. He crossed the ballroom in long strides, pushed past Celeste's attempt to grab him, and reached the cage. "How much?" he called out. "You're auctioning him, right? How much for the contract?" Caliph's expression flickered with surprise, then delight. "The Queen's pet wants to play? How entertaining." The starting bid was 20,000 each. 50,000, Elias said. He had no idea if he had that kind of money. Didn't care. 60, called a voice from the crowd. Count Dmitri, of course. 75, Elias countered. 100, Dmitri said lazily. Let's see how far the human's compassion extends. Elias felt the trap closing. They were making him look foolish, proving that a human couldn't compete in their world. But that man in the cage, he was someone's son, maybe someone's father. He had a life before vampires ruined it. "The auction is over," Seraphine announced. She'd moved silently behind Caliph. "As queen, I invoke right of mercy. The contract is void." Caliph spun to face her. "You can't. Right of mercy hasn't been invoked in 70 years. It requires blood price." "I know," Seraphine extended her wrist. "Take it." The ballroom went deathly silent. Blood price meant Seraphine would allow Caliph to feed from her, a sign of submission, a public humiliation. Queens didn't offer blood price. Ever. Caliph's eyes gleamed with triumph. "Your Majesty, are you certain?" "Once offered, it cannot be refused."
"Take."
Its Seraphine's voice was steel. Caliph grabbed her wrist and bit down savagely. Seraphine didn't flinch, didn't make a sound, but Elias saw her go pale, paler than usual. Saw her sway slightly. Vampire blood was precious, more potent than human. Caliph was draining her deliberately, publicly proving her weakness. Elias couldn't watch. He turned to the cage, found the lock, and smashed it with a champagne bottle from a nearby table. The glass shattered, the lock broke, and he pulled the man free. "You're okay," he said, using his calm paramedic voice while untying the gag. "I've got you. You're safe now." The man sobbed against him. "Thank you. God. Thank you." Then the lights went out. Not gradually, all at once, plunging the ballroom into absolute darkness. Elias heard screams, crashes, the sound of something large hitting the floor. Emergency lights flickered on, casting everything in hellish red. Seraphine was on the ground, unconscious. Caliph stood over her, his mouth still bloody, holding something silver, a knife?
No.
A syringe.
Empty.
"She's been drugged with concentrated silver solution," someone shouted. "She's dying." Elias's training overrode his fear. He shoved the rescued man toward Celeste, "Get him out of here," and dropped to his knees beside Seraphine. Her skin was turning gray. Her eyes rolled back. Whatever Caliph had injected, it was killing her fast. "She needs blood," Marcus said, suddenly beside him. "Pure vampire blood and lots of it. But the silver will kill anyone who tries to feed her. It's in her system now." "Not anyone," Elias was already rolling up his sleeve. "I'm human. Silver doesn't poison me. You don't understand. If she feeds from you in this state, she won't be able to stop. She'll drain you dry." Elias looked at Seraphine's gray face, heard her rattling breath. Thought of Lila. Thought of the debt he'd already paid, the deal he'd made. Thought of how this woman had saved his daughter's life. "Then you'd better have a defibrillator ready," he said, and pressed his wrist to her lips. Her fangs sank in like fire, and the world dissolved into pain. Elias woke to birdsong and sunlight streaming through gauzy curtains. For a confused moment, he thought he was dead. Then the pain hit, a deep, bone-weary exhaustion that made his whole body feel hollow. His wrist throbbed where bandages wrapped thick around his arm. "Easy." A hand pressed him back down. Marcus, looking more tired than Elias had ever seen a vampire look. "You lost a lot of blood. We had to transfuse you twice. If you'd been even slightly anemic, you'd be dead." "Seraphine?" Elias's voice came out as a croak.
Alive.
"Recovering. The silver nearly killed her, but your blood flushed it from her system." Marcus poured water from a crystal pitcher, held the glass to Elias's lips. "You saved her life. That's unprecedented. No human has ever." He stopped, seeming at a loss for words. "Where is she?" "Her private chambers. She's been unconscious for 2 days. You've been out for 3 days." Elias struggled to sit up despite Marcus's protests. "Lila, I need to call. Your daughter thinks you're on an extended business trip. We've had Celeste calling her every evening in a female voice, pretending to be your colleague. The child is fine, Mr. Crane. Please, lie back down before you pass out again." But Elias was already reaching for the phone on the nightstand. His hands shook as he dialed. When Lila's sleepy voice answered, it was early morning. He nearly wept with relief.
"Daddy.
Are you coming home soon?" "Soon, sweetheart. How's school?"
Good.
"We're learning about the solar system. Did you know Jupiter has 79 moons?" They talked for 10 minutes about planets and her friend Emma's birthday party and how Mrs. Chun made the best chocolate chip cookies. Normal things. Human things. Things that reminded Elias why he was doing this. After he hung up, Marcus was still standing there, watching him with an unreadable expression. "She's 7, Elias said quietly. "She's already lost her mother." "I can't," his voice broke. "We know." Marcus moved to the window, his back to Elias. "The Queen reviewed your file personally. Every detail. She knows what you've sacrificed. What you're still sacrificing, he turned. That's why she chose you. And why what you did, offering your blood, means more than you understand. I just did what anyone would do.
No.
You did what no one else would. Every vampire in that ballroom watched you risk your life for her. You've changed something, Mr. Crane. I'm not sure what yet, but something fundamental has shifted. Before Elias could respond, the door opened. Celeste entered, followed by Thomas carrying a tray of food that smelled like heaven: eggs, bacon, toast, orange juice. Doctor's orders, Celeste said. Eat everything. Your body needs to rebuild blood cells, and Jean-Pierre will kill me if you faint during tomorrow's board meeting. Tomorrow? I can barely stand. You'll manage. The show must go on. Half of vampire society is talking about the Queen's brave human companion. The other half is calling you a fool. Either way, you're famous now, she smiled without warmth. Try not to die before we can capitalize on it. The next week blurred into a strange routine. Elias attended meetings during the day, board meetings for Morvain Industries, charity functions, a press conference about a new medical research grant. He played his role, the competent consultant, the Queen's daylight representative. People photographed him. Reporters asked questions. He smiled and said nothing of substance, just like Victoria had taught him. But every evening, he returned to the keep and asked about Seraphine. Still unconscious. Still recovering. Silver poisoning was serious, even for a centuries-old vampire. On the 7th day, Marcus finally led him to her chambers. The room was dimly lit, curtains drawn against even the faintest sunlight. Seraphine lay in an enormous canopy bed, looking small and fragile against dark silk sheets. Her skin had regained some color, but she was still too pale, too still. Talk to her, Marcus said. She can hear you. It might help. So Elias sat in a chair beside her bed and talked. He told her about the board meeting where he'd accidentally approved a merger he didn't understand. About Jean-Pierre's horror at his tie selection. About Lila's latest drawing, a family portrait with Daddy, Lila, and a queen that his daughter had drawn with a big crown and kind eyes. She doesn't know what you are, Elias said quietly. But somehow she knows you matter.
Kids are weird like that.
They see things adults miss. He paused, studying Seraphine's face. Without the weight of centuries in her eyes, without the mask of queenly composure, she looked vulnerable, almost human. I don't understand you, he admitted. You're a predator. You've probably killed people. You run an empire built on blood and fear. But you also saved my daughter. You took a chance on some random paramedic with massive debt. And you almost died enforcing a law that protects humans from vampires like Calith. He reached out, stopped just short of touching her hand. Who are you really, Seraphine Morvain? Her eyes opened. Amber irises focused on him, clearer than he'd ever seen them. A faint smile curved her lips. I'm someone who's been very lonely for a very long time, she whispered. And I think you might understand what that feels like. Elias's breath caught, because she was right. Since Sarah died, since Lila got sick, since his whole world narrowed to survival and debt, he'd been lonely in a way that had nothing to do with being alone. Yeah, he said softly.
Ido.
Seraphine's hand moved, covering his. Her skin was still cold, but not as cold as before. Not as lifeless. Stay, she said.
Please.
I'm tired of waking up alone. So Elias stayed. He pulled the chair closer and kept talking about everything and nothing, about his life before this, about the strange new world he'd entered. And Seraphine listened, occasionally asking questions, sometimes smiling at his stories. As dawn approached and she began to fade into true sleep, she squeezed his hand once. Thank you, she murmured, for saving me, for staying, for being real. You're welcome, Elias replied. But long after she'd fallen unconscious again, he sat there, holding her cold hand, and wondered when exactly she'd stopped being just his employer. When she'd started becoming something else entirely. 3 weeks into his new life, Elias broke protocol and went home. Not to his apartment. Marcus had moved all his belongings to a secure location without asking. Home meant Mrs. Chen's third-floor unit where Lila was staying until the new arrangements were finalized, where his daughter waited, growing more confused with every passing day about why Daddy couldn't visit. He told Seraphine he was attending a morning meeting with the hospital board. Technically true, he had attended it. He just hadn't mentioned the detour afterward. The Portland streets felt different now. He noticed things he'd never seen before. The pale woman watching from a coffee shop window at noon, too still to be human. The businessman whose reflection in the store window didn't quite match his movements. Signs everywhere that vampires walked among humans, hidden in plain sight. How had he never noticed before? Mrs. Chen answered the door with flour on her hands and suspicion in her eyes. Mr. Crane, this is unexpected. I know I should have called. I needed to see Lila. The old woman's expression softened. She misses you. Asks about you every day. This new job, it's taking you away from her. Guilt twisted in Elias's stomach. It won't be forever. Just until things settle. Things have a way of never settling, but Mrs. Chen stepped aside. She's doing homework in the kitchen. And Mr. Crane? Whatever you're involved in, be careful. I've lived in this city 70 years. I know when something's not right. Elias wanted to ask what she meant, but Lila's voice called out. Daddy. She barreled into him, all 70 pounds of energy and joy, and Elias caught her up in a hug that made his still healing body protest. He didn't care. This was his daughter. His reason for everything. You came. Are you done with your work trip? Can you stay? Just visiting today, sweetheart. But look, I brought you something. He pulled out a small box. Inside was a silver bracelet with a charm shaped like a dragon. For my favorite artist. Lila's eyes went wide. It's beautiful. Can I wear it now? As Elias fastened the bracelet around her tiny wrist, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. There was a man across the street, sitting in a parked sedan, watching the building. Dark suit, pale skin, sunglasses despite the overcast sky. A vampire, following him. Hey, Lila, why don't you show me that dragon drawing you told me about? Elias kept his voice light, but his mind was racing. How long had they been watching? Did they know about this place? About Mrs. Chen? They went into the kitchen, and Lila chattered about school, while Elias's paranoia spiraled. He'd been so careful. No one knew about this apartment except everyone at the keep knew he had a daughter. They'd read his file. They knew everything about him. He should have realized they'd be watching. After an hour of pretending everything was normal, of helping with math homework and listening to stories about recess, Elias kissed Lila goodbye and promised to call soon. Mrs. Chen walked him to the door. That man in the car, she said quietly. He's been there for 3 days. Different shifts, but always someone watching. I wanted to call the police, but something told me that wouldn't help. Elias's chest tightened. 3 days. They'd been watching even before he came. Mrs. Chen, I need you to promise me something. If anyone tries to come into this apartment without your permission, you call this number immediately. He pressed a card into her hand. Marcus's direct line. Don't ask questions. Just call. Mr. Crane, what have you gotten involved in? Something that's going to keep Lila safe and healthy. But I need you to trust me. Please. The old woman studied him for a long moment, then nodded. I've trusted you this far. Don't make me regret it. Elias left the building, walked past the sedan without looking at it, and made it 2 blocks before his phone rang. Marcus's name flashed on the screen. You were told not to visit your daughter without clearance, Marcus said without preamble. You were followed by Adrian from House Blackthorn Surveillance Division. He's reporting to Lord Calith right now. You said Lila would be safe. She is safe from us. But you just showed Calith exactly where to find her. Every vampire in the Northwest knows you're the Queen's favorite now. You've made her vulnerable, which means you've made your daughter a target. Elias stopped walking. The world seemed to tilt. What do I do? Get back to the keep.
Now.
We'll handle this. The line went dead. Elias's hands were shaking as he hailed a cab. His mind replayed every moment of the visit. Lila's smile, the bracelet, the man in the car. He'd been so stupid, so desperate to see his daughter, that he'd led danger straight to her door. When he arrived back at the keep, Seraphine was waiting in the East Gallery. She was fully recovered now, dressed in a simple black dress, her hair loose around her shoulders. But her expression was thunderous. You went to see Lila, not a question. An accusation. She's my daughter. I have a right. You have no rights. Seraphine's voice cracked like a whip. You belong to this world now. Every action you take has consequences. Every decision affects not just you, but everyone connected to you. She crossed the room in 3 swift strides. Do you understand what you've done? Caliph now knows exactly where your daughter lives. He knows her routines, her caretaker, her vulnerabilities. You've handed him the perfect weapon. Then protect her. Elias shouted back. You promised she'd be safe. I promised to keep her safe from my world. I can't protect her from your stupidity. They stood there, both breathing hard, the space between them crackling with anger and fear. Then Seraphine's shoulders sagged. The queen's mask slipped, and for a moment, she just looked tired. Ancient and impossibly tired. I'm sorry, she said quietly. That was unfair. You're human. You still think like a human about rights and freedoms and normal life. But that life is gone, Elias. The moment you signed our contract, it was gone. So what now? Seraphine walked to her desk and picked up a small velvet box. When she opened it, a medallion gleamed inside, silver and sapphire, carved with symbols that hurt to look at directly. This is my personal crest. It's been in my family for 800 years, she lifted it from the box. Anyone who wears it is under my absolute protection. They cannot be touched, harmed, or threatened without declaring war on House Morvain directly. She stepped forward and fastened it around Elias's neck. Her cold fingers brushed his skin, and he shivered. Give this to your daughter. Tell her it's a good luck charm from work. Never let her take it off. Will it really protect her? Against vampires?
Yes.
Against human dangers, accidents, illness, random violence?
No.
I'm powerful, Elias, but I'm not omnipotent. Her hand lingered on his chest, just above his heart. But I swear to you, as long as she wears this, no vampire will touch her. On my life and throne. Elias covered her hand with his. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This kind of protection comes with a price. Caliph and others will see this as proof that you matter to me. That you're not just an employee. Her amber eyes met his. They'll use that against us. Against you. Let them try. Something flickered in her expression. Surprise, maybe, or respect. Her thumb traced a small circle on his chest, right over his heartbeat. You saved my life, she said softly. It's only fair I save yours. But Elias? No more secret visits. No more going anywhere without security. Your independence died the moment you let me drink from you. I know. But as she pulled away, as the distance returned between them, Elias realized something that should have terrified him, but somehow didn't.
He was bound to her now.
Not just by contract or debt, but by something deeper. Something neither of them had words for yet. And that scared him more than any vampire ever could. The medallion arrived at Mrs. Chen's apartment by courier at exactly 3:47 p.m. Elias had watched from a command center in the keep as Marcus coordinated the delivery. On the security monitors, Lila opened the box with wide eyes, pulling out the silver and sapphire pendant. It's so pretty. Her voice came through crystal clear on the audio feed. Look, Mrs. Chen. Daddy sent me a necklace. Mrs. Chen examined it with the careful suspicion of someone who'd seen too much in her 70 years. But she helped Lila fasten it around her neck anyway, and Elias watched his daughter touch it reverently, like it was the most precious thing in the world. If she only knew. The protection is active, Celeste reported from her station. Any vampire within 100 yards will sense the queen's mark. They'll stay away. Will it feel different to her? Elias asked. Will she know what it does? She'll feel safe. Warmer. Like someone's watching over her. Celeste glanced at him. It's drawn from Seraphine's own life force. Maintaining that kind of protection is draining, especially for multiple people. Multiple? You're wearing one too, aren't you? Elias touched the medallion under his shirt, identical to Lila's but worn on a heavier chain. Seraphine had given it to him that morning without ceremony, just a quiet, wear this before she disappeared into meetings he wasn't allowed to attend. She's protecting both of us, Elias said slowly. That's why she looked so tired today. Celeste's expression softened almost imperceptibly. The queen hasn't created protection bonds in decades. The last time was she stopped herself. Never mind. It's not my place. But Elias heard the unspoken words anyway. The last time was when she still had someone she loved. That evening, Seraphine summoned him to her private study, a room he'd never been invited to before. It was smaller than he expected, lined with books and languages he couldn't read. A fire burned in the marble fireplace despite the warm spring evening. She sat at a massive oak desk, working through papers with inhuman speed. Sit, she said without looking up. We need to discuss your living arrangements. Elias took the chair across from her. I thought that was already decided. I'm staying here. Not you. Your daughter, Seraphine, finally looked up, and Elias saw the exhaustion in her eyes, subtle but there. Mrs. Chun is 73. She's kind, but she's not equipped to protect Lila if someone targets her. The medallion helps, but it's not foolproof. We need a better solution. What are you suggesting? There's an estate. 20 minutes from here in the hills. Gated, secured, monitored 24/7 by my people. It has a pool, gardens, plenty of room for a 7-year-old to run around. I'm offering it to you. Both of you. Elias stared at her. You want us to live in one of your properties. I want your daughter somewhere I can guarantee her safety. This is a practical solution, Elias. Nothing more. But the way she said it, too casual, too carefully neutral, made him wonder. What's the catch?
No catch.
You'll have complete privacy. Separate wing from the main house. I'll rarely be there. I have the keep for my needs. But there will be security. Human guards during the day, vampire sentinels at night. Your daughter will never be alone. She'll be in a golden cage. She'll be alive, Seraphine's voice hardened. Caliph has been quiet since the gala, but he's planning something. I can feel it. He was humiliated twice, once by my right of mercy, once by you saving my life.
He won't let that stand.
And the easiest way to hurt me is through you. The easiest way to hurt you is through Lila. Elias wanted to argue. Wanted to say that his daughter deserved a normal life, normal school, normal friends. But what was normal anymore? Living in a rundown apartment, watching his daughter wear a magical medallion to ward off vampires, lying to her about why daddy was never home. Can she have friends over? Go to her regular school? Yes and yes. I'm offering protection, not imprisonment. But her friends will be vetted. Her teachers will be informed she has a medical condition that requires she wear the necklace at all times. And you'll need to tell her something about why you're living in a mansion now. What do I tell her? Seraphine leaned back, her fingers steepled under her chin. The truth, mostly. You got a very good job with a very demanding boss. The job comes with housing. It's not that unusual in the corporate world. And when she asks to meet this boss, something flickered across Seraphine's face, an expression Elias couldn't quite read. Then you bring her to meet me. I can be pleasant to children, Elias. I'm not a monster. I didn't say you were. You were thinking it. Their eyes met across the desk. In the firelight, Seraphine's face was softer than usual, the harsh lines of her queenly mask smoothed away. She looked almost lonely. Why are you really doing this? Elias asked quietly. The protection, the estate, all of it. It's more than just keeping your investment safe. Seraphine was silent for a long moment. Then she stood and walked to the window, her back to him. I had a daughter once, she said finally. Not by birth. Vampires can't have children. But I turned a girl long ago. She was dying of consumption and I offered her eternity. She said yes. Elias held his breath, afraid that speaking would break whatever spell had loosened her tongue. Her name was Catherine. She was brilliant, fierce, funny. She was my companion for 47 years. Seraphine's voice was distant now, lost in memory. Then she decided eternity wasn't worth living and walked into the sunrise. I found her ashes in the garden. Seraphine. I see Catherine sometimes. In Lila's smile, in the way she draws with such concentration. In how much she loves you despite everything you've put her through. She turned back to face him, and her eyes were bright, not with tears, because vampires couldn't cry, but with something rawer than grief. I can't save Catherine.
She's gone.
But I can save Lila. And I will. Not because you work for me. Not because of debt or contracts. But because no child should suffer for their parents' choices. Elias crossed the room without thinking, without planning. He took Seraphine's cold hand in both of his.
Thank you, he said.
For telling me.
For
caring. Don't read too much into it, Seraphine said, but she didn't pull her hand away. I'm capable of sentiment. It doesn't make me human. I know what you are. Do you? She searched his face, and he saw vulnerability there that no queen should show. Because I'm not sure I know anymore. You've complicated things, Elias Crane. In ways I didn't expect. They stood there, hands joined, the fire crackling behind them. Elias could feel her pulse, faint but present, a reminder that vampires were dead, but not entirely lifeless. The estate, he said finally. I'll take it. For Lila. Smart choice. But I want one thing in return. Seraphine's eyebrow arched. You're negotiating with me now.
Dinner.
With you and Lila. Once we're moved in. Just.
Dinner.
Like normal people. I don't eat human food. Then sit with us while we eat.
Talk to her.
Let her see that the woman protecting her isn't just some distant boss. He squeezed her hand gently. Let her see what I'm starting to see. Which is? Elias smiled. That you're not nearly as scary as you pretend to be. Seraphine laughed, a real laugh, surprised and genuine. Don't let the court hear you say that. You'll ruin my reputation. Your secret's safe with me. She pulled her hand back, but slowly, reluctantly.
Fine.
Dinner. But if she asks why I'm not eating, you're explaining it. Deal. As Elias turned to leave, Seraphine called out. Elias? Yeah. Thank you. For trusting me with her. I know what that costs you. He looked back at the vampire queen, standing alone in her study surrounded by centuries of accumulated knowledge and loneliness. You trusted me with your life, he said. It's only fair. After he left, Seraphine stood at the window for a long time, touching the spot on her hand where his warmth had lingered. She was in terrible danger, she realized. Not from Caliph or the council or political intrigue. From something far more terrifying, the possibility of caring about someone again. And this time, she might not survive when it ended. The summons came at midnight, a formal scroll delivered by 3 council enforcers wearing ceremonial armor that looked medieval and somehow still menacing. Marcus accepted it with a bow so deep it bordered on mockery, then brought it straight to Seraphine's chambers where she and Elias were reviewing contracts for the estate transfer. The Grand Council convenes in 3 hours, Marcus announced, his voice tight with controlled anger. They're invoking ancient right. Full assembly. No proxies allowed. Seraphine went perfectly still. On what grounds? Violation of the blood laws. Specifically, granting royal protection to humans outside formal thrall contracts, using personal life force for extended wards, and Marcus's eyes flicked to Elias. Showing preferential treatment that undermines vampire supremacy. They're putting me on trial, Seraphine said flatly. For protecting a child. They're putting you on trial for caring about humans more than vampire tradition, Marcus's jaw clenched. Kalitha's been busy. He's gathered enough council votes to force this. If they rule against you, the penalty is exile or execution. I know the law, Seraphine stood, her movement sharp. How many votes does he have? At least 7 of the 13 council members. You need 7 to keep your throne. Then we have work to do. She turned to Elias. You need to leave.
Now.
Go to the estate, get Lila, and wait for my signal. If this goes badly.
I am staying, Elias interrupted.
This isn't a negotiation. You're right. It's not. Elias stood to face her. If they're putting you on trial for protecting me and my daughter, then I should be there. Let them see exactly what they're condemning. Elias, the council chamber is sacred ground. No human has entered it in 2 centuries. If they even suspect you're listening, they could kill you on principle. Then I'll be very quiet. Seraphine looked like she wanted to argue, but something in his expression stopped her. Instead, she turned to Marcus. Can it be done? Marcus considered, then slowly nodded. There's a gallery. Behind glamored glass. Humans can observe without being sensed. It was built for historical documentation. Spying, Seraphine corrected. It was built for spying.
Fine.
Get him prepared. Full concealment protocols. And Marcus? If anything happens to me tonight, you execute contingency Omega. Marcus's face went ashen. Your Majesty, that protocol hasn't been activated since I thought I might not survive the Reformation Wars. I know. Do it anyway. 2 hours later, Elias found himself in a cramped observation gallery overlooking the council chamber. The room below was circular, built from black marble that seemed to absorb light. 13 thrones arranged in a semicircle, each occupied by a vampire so old they barely looked human anymore. Their eyes glowed in the darkness, red, gold, silver, like predators watching from caves. Seraphine entered wearing crimson, a formal gown that seemed to be made from liquid rubies, with a train that swept behind her like blood across marble. Her hair was crowned with a circlet of black diamonds. She looked every inch the queen. And utterly alone. Seraphine Morvain, spoke the eldest council member, a creature so ancient his skin was translucent. You stand accused of betraying the fundamental principles upon which vampire society is built. How do you answer? I answer that the accuser should show himself, Seraphine's voice rang through the chamber. Caliph, stop hiding behind procedure. If you want my throne, have the courage to challenge me directly. Caliph emerged from the shadows, wearing black ceremonial robes. This isn't about wanting your throne, Your Majesty. It's about preserving what we are. You've placed vampire lives at risk for humans. You've bound yourself to a mortal and his offspring. You've shown weakness that endangers us all. I've shown mercy. There's a difference. Mercy to cattle? Calitha's voice dripped contempt. We are apex predators. We don't owe humans anything except perhaps gratitude that they exist to feed us. Count Dmitri spoke up, his Russian accent thick. The boy who insulted me at the gala, this Elias Crane. You protect him with your own life force.
Why?
What service could a human possibly provide worth such expenditure? Seraphine's expression remained neutral. He serves as my daylight representative. He's proven invaluable in human business dealings. Business, Lady Vivian leaned forward, her emerald eyes calculating. We've reviewed your financial records, Seraphine. Morvain Industries has become increasingly ethical under your humans' influence, divesting from blood farms, increasing thrall protections, supporting human medical research. You're not just protecting one human, you're undermining our entire economic structure. I'm adapting to a changing world. Humans are not sheep anymore. They have technology, weapons, organization. If we continue treating them as prey, eventually they'll hunt us down. Fear, Caliph said triumphantly. The Queen of House Morvain admits she fears humans. This is exactly why she's unfit to rule. I don't fear them. I respect them. And respect is how you maintain power in the modern world, not through terror and feeding frenzies. The ancient council member raised a skeletal hand. The question before us is simple. Has Queen Seraphine violated blood law by granting protection to humans without proper thrall contracts? The law is clear. Such protections are reserved for humans who serve us directly, feeding us, housing us, keeping our secrets. This Elias Crane does none of these things. He saved my life, Seraphine said quietly. The chamber fell silent. He offered his blood when I was dying from silver poisoning. He risked his own life to save mine. By ancient tradition, that creates a life debt. Or have we forgotten our own laws in favor of Calith's ambition? The council members exchanged glances. Life debts were sacred, older than the blood laws themselves, dating back to vampire origins. The human knew the risks, the ancient one asked. He was warned it could kill him. He did it anyway. Dmitri laughed, a cold, bitter sound. Then he's a fool. And you're a fool for valuing a fool's sacrifice. Or perhaps I'm wise enough to recognize loyalty when I see it, Seraphine turned to address the entire council. Every vampire in this chamber has thralls, servants, humans who serve you. But how many of them would die for you? How many would risk everything knowing they'd receive nothing in return? She paused. Elias Crane has asked nothing of me except that I protect his daughter. A child. An innocent. And we sit here debating whether showing mercy to a child makes me unfit to rule? It makes you weak, Calith said. And weakness in a queen leads to chaos. Then challenge me properly. Seraphine's voice cracked like thunder. Invoke trial by blood. Face me yourself instead of hiding behind council votes and political games. Or are you too weak to back up your accusations? Calitha's expression flickered, surprise, then calculation. Trial by blood was ancient ritual combat. Winner took everything. Loser died permanently. You would risk your throne on single combat? He asked carefully. To prove that protecting the innocent isn't weakness? Yes. In the gallery, Elias's heart hammered. She was gambling everything, her throne, her life, House Morvaine's future, on a fight to the death. For him. For Lila. The ancient council member stood slowly. The challenge has been issued. Lord Calith, you must answer. Accept the trial by blood, or withdraw your accusations. Calith's face went through several expressions before settling on cold fury. I accept. 3 nights hence, we meet in the old way. To the death. So witnessed, the ancient one intoned. This council is adjourned until the trial concludes. As the vampires filed out, Seraphine remained standing in the center of the chamber, alone under the dim lights, still wearing her crown and her fierce expression. But from the gallery, Elias could see what no one else could. Her hands were shaking. She'd just bet everything on a fight she might not win. And if she lost, Elias and Lila would have no protection at all. Marcus appeared beside Elias in the gallery. We need to go.
Now.
Before someone senses you. Can she win? Marcus was silent for too long. Calith is younger but vicious. He's been training for this. Seraphine. She hasn't fought to the death in decades. She's powerful, but power isn't everything in combat. What are her chances? Honestly, 50-50. Maybe less. As they left, Elias looked back one last time at Seraphine, still standing alone in that cold marble chamber. She'd saved him. She'd protected his daughter. She'd risked everything. Now it was his turn to figure out how to save her. Even if he had no idea how a human could possibly help a vampire queen survive a fight to the death. The plan came together in pieces over 48 hours, whispered conversations in the Keep's library, encrypted files Marcus pulled from archives, and one very dangerous suggestion from Celeste that should have gotten them all killed. Calith won't fight fair, she explained, spreading ancient manuscripts across the table in Seraphine's study. The queen was in her chambers, conserving strength for the trial. He never has. Look at his history. Every challenge he's won involved poison, ambush, or sabotage before the actual combat. Elias studied the documents, his paramedic training translating Latin medical terms. Silver poisoning. Weakened opponents. He's done it at least 4 times. 5. Marcus corrected grimly. The 5th victim's records were expunged. But I remember. She was my sister. The room went silent. I'm sorry, Elias said quietly. Don't be. Be useful, Marcus's voice was hard. Caliph has someone inside the keep. Someone with access to the Queen's chambers. They'll try to poison her again before the trial. We need to find them.
How?
Celeste smiled without humor. By giving them an opportunity, they can't resist. And using bait they can't ignore. The bait, it turned out, was Elias. They spread the word carefully. Elias would be visiting Lila at the new estate that evening. Security reduced to minimal staff. The Queen was too distracted by preparation to notice. A perfect opportunity to eliminate the human and destabilize Seraphine before the fight. You understand the risk? Seraphine asked when she finally emerged from her chambers that evening. She looked exhausted, skin paler than usual, dark circles under her eyes from channeling power into the protection medallions. If I'm wrong, if Calith's people are bolder than we expect, then your security will handle it. Elias adjusted his jacket, checking the concealed panic button Marcus had given him. And if they don't, I've survived firefights in Afghanistan. I can handle some vampires. These aren't insurgents with AK-47s. These are creatures who've killed for centuries. I know, he met her eyes. But I'm not hiding while you risk everything for me and Lila. Let me help. Something passed between them. Understanding, respect, something deeper that neither was ready to name. Be careful, she said finally. If anything happens to you, I'll have no reason to win this fight. Before Elias could process that admission, Marcus appeared. Car's ready. We need to move now while Calith's people are watching. The drive to the estate took 20 minutes through darkening streets. Elias sat in the back of the town car, watching the city lights blur past, his heart hammering against his ribs. Somewhere behind them, Marcus followed in a second vehicle with Celeste and 2 vampire enforcers. Close enough to respond. Far enough not to spook their targets. The estate rose from the hillside like something from a fairy tale, all stone and glass, with gardens that glowed under artful lighting. Mrs. Chun had brought Lila here that morning, and according to the security feed, his daughter was currently in the pool house, drawing pictures of dragons while a human guard named Rodriguez watched over her. Elias's car pulled into the circular driveway. The driver, a day-shift human named Stevens, opened his door. All clear, Mr. Crane. I'll wait here. But as Elias stepped out, he felt it. The wrongness in the air. The too perfect silence. Stevens collapsed before Elias could shout a warning. Not dead, drugged, from the dart protruding from his neck. Elias spun toward the house and saw the front door hanging open. Lila.
He ran.
The foyer was dark, the security lights disabled. Elias's training kicked in. Stay low, check corners, control your breathing. He'd cleared buildings in Kabul. This was no different. Except it was. Because his daughter was somewhere in this house. He found Rodriguez in the kitchen, unconscious but breathing. The pool house door was open, and Elias's blood turned to ice. The room was empty. Lila's drawings scattered across the floor. Her shoes by the poolside. And a note on the table, written in elegant script. The child is safe.
For now.
Come to the West Garden. Alone. Or she stops being safe. Elias's hands shook as he pressed the panic button 3 times, the emergency signal. Then he pocketed it and walked toward the West Garden, every instinct screaming at him to run, to fight, to do anything except walk into an obvious trap. But Lila was in danger. Everything else was irrelevant. The West Garden was overgrown with roses, their scent overwhelming in the night air. And there, standing beside a marble fountain, was Lord Caliph. He held Lila by the shoulder, not roughly, but firmly enough that she couldn't run. Her eyes were wide with fear, and she clutched her dragon drawing like a lifeline. Mr. Crane, Caliph said pleasantly. Thank you for coming. I apologize for the drama, but subtlety has never been my strength. Let her go. In a moment. First we talk. Caliph gestured with his free hand. You've become quite the inconvenience. The queen's little pet human, causing all sorts of trouble. She's fighting for you, did you know? She's going to die in 2 days because she can't bear to lose her precious consultant. She's fighting because you're a coward who can't win without cheating. Caliph's smile didn't waver. Cheating is such an ugly word. I prefer strategically advantageous preparation, and my strategy tonight is very simple. Remove you from the equation. Without you to protect, Seraphine has no motivation. She'll lose. House Morvain falls to me. Everyone wins. Daddy. Lila's voice cracked. I'm scared. It's okay, sweetheart. Everything's going to be okay. Is it though? Calitha's eyes glowed red in the darkness. Because I'm trying to decide, do I kill you and spare the child? Or do I kill you both and eliminate the problem entirely? The child wears Seraphine's protection, which makes it complicated, but not impossible. He didn't finish the sentence. Because Seraphine appeared behind him like smoke made solid, moving faster than Elias's eyes could track. She grabbed Caliph by the throat and threw him 30 feet into the rose bushes. Lila, run to Daddy.
Now.
His daughter sprinted to Elias, and he swept her up, feeling the medallion's warmth against his chest. She was safe. She was. Elias down. He dropped, covering Lila's body with his. Something whistled over his head, a silver blade that would have decapitated him. 3 more vampires emerged from the shadows, Calitha's enforcers, all armed with silver weapons. Seraphine stood between them and Elias, and her eyes blazed like fire. You attack under my protection? In my territory? That's an act of war. War it is. Then Caliph rose from the roses, brushing petals from his suit. Blood dripped from his mouth where Seraphine had crushed his windpipe. I was going to wait for the trial. Be honorable. But you forced my hand. He gestured, and his enforcers attacked. What followed was violence beyond anything Elias had ever witnessed. Seraphine moved like lightning, her hands ripping through vampire flesh with surgical precision. But there were 4 of them and 1 of her, and silver burned whenever it touched her skin. Marcus. Elias shouted into the night, knowing the backup team should have been here already. Where were they? Then he saw the smoke rising from the driveway, heard the distant sounds of fighting. Marcus and Celeste were engaged. Caliph had brought more people than they'd expected. This wasn't just kidnapping. This was assassination. Seraphine went down under a coordinated attack, silver blades piercing her shoulder and thigh. She screamed, not in pain, but in rage, and took 2 of the enforcers with her, literally tearing them apart. But Caliph was on her in seconds, a silver spike raised above his head. The queen is dead. Long live the king. Elias didn't think. He just moved. He grabbed Lila's drawing, the thick paper she'd been coloring with markers, rolled it tight, and drove it into Calitha's eye with all his strength. It wasn't silver. It wasn't a weapon. It was a child's drawing of a dragon. But it was enough. Caliph howled, stumbling back, and Seraphine surged up from the ground. This time, she didn't hold back. She grabbed Calitha's head in both hands and twisted. The crack echoed through the garden like a gunshot. Lord Caliph of House Blackthorn, ancient vampire and would-be king, crumpled to the ground with a child's drawing still protruding from his eye socket.
Dead.
Finally, permanently dead. Seraphine stood over him, breathing hard, bleeding from a dozen wounds. The last enforcer fled into the night. Then she turned to Elias and Lila, and her expression shattered.
I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry.
I thought we were ready. I thought. You saved us, Elias interrupted, still holding his trembling daughter. You came. I almost didn't make it. If you hadn't, if that drawing hadn't, she laughed, slightly hysterical. A dragon drawing. You killed a vampire lord with a dragon drawing. Lila, remarkably composed for a 7-year-old who'd just been kidnapped, looked up at Seraphine. "Are you the lady for my picture? The queen one?" Seraphine knelt down, despite her wounds, and looked Lila in the eyes.
Yes.
"I'm the queen. And I promise you, child, no one will ever hurt you again. Not while I'm alive." "Okay," Lila considered this. "Can you have dinner with us tomorrow? Daddy said you would." In the blood-soaked garden, surrounded by bodies and roses, Seraphine smiled.
Yes.
"I can do that." Marcus arrived then, bruised and furious, followed by Celeste and reinforcements. The cleanup would take hours. The political ramifications would take weeks. But for now, Elias held his daughter close, watched Seraphine give orders despite her wounds, and realized something terrifying. He'd stopped thinking of her as his employer. She'd become something else entirely. And from the way she kept glancing at him and Lila, checking, protecting, caring, he suspected she'd realized the same thing. The 3 days following Kalitha's death were chaos. With their leader gone, House Blackthorn fractured. Some swore allegiance to Seraphine. Others went rogue, disappearing into the underground networks that existed beneath every major city. But a core group, Kalitha's inner circle, refused to accept defeat. They wanted revenge. And they knew exactly where to find it. The attack came at 2:47 p.m. on a sunny Thursday afternoon. Elias was at a board meeting downtown, presenting quarterly reports to human executives who had no idea they were working for vampires. His phone buzzed once, Marcus's emergency code. Then the building's fire alarm went off. "Everyone out," Elias shouted, abandoning all pretense of normalcy. He ran for the stairs, taking them 3 at a time, Marcus's voice crackling through his earpiece. "They hit the estate. During daylight. They're using incendiaries to drive out our people, killing the day guards. Lila and Mrs. Chun are trapped in the safe room, but the fire's spreading. We can't get reinforcements there until dark." "I'm closer." Elias burst through the ground floor exit into blinding sunlight. 20 minutes if I speed. Have someone meet me with fireproof gear." "Elias, they're waiting for you. This is a trap." "I don't care. That's my daughter." He'd parked 6 blocks away. Elias ran the entire distance, his lungs burning, his dress shoes slipping on pavement. Behind him, he heard screeching tires, Marcus's people trying to catch up. But Elias had grown up in Portland. He knew every alley, every shortcut. He reached his car in 4 minutes, 40 seconds. Drove like a man possessed through afternoon traffic, running red lights, ignoring speed limits, his phone on speaker as Marcus coordinated from the keep. "Seraphine's trying to reach you," Marcus said. "She's trapped until sunset. But she says," his voice caught. "She says if you die for this, she'll never forgive you. Tell her I'll apologize later." The estate came into view, smoke billowing from the west wing. Elias could see flames through the windows, orange and hungry, consuming the beautiful house Seraphine had offered them. The gates hung open, twisted metal from where something had blown through them. Bodies on the lawn, human guards, their blood staining the grass. Elias's combat training from Afghanistan snapped into place. Assess. Prioritize. Execute. The safe room was in the east wing, underground level. To reach it, he'd have to cross through the main house, now fully engulfed. The pool house offered another route, through the maintenance tunnels. He grabbed the fireproof gear Marcus's team had thrown in his trunk that morning, coat, mask, gloves. Not enough for sustained exposure, but better than nothing. And a gun. Glock 19, loaded with regular ammunition that would barely slow down a vampire, but made him feel incrementally less helpless. Elias ran toward the pool house. The door was blocked by debris, but the windows were intact. He smashed through with a patio chair, climbed inside, and found the tunnel access behind the changing rooms. The tunnels were dark, lit only by emergency lights. Elias moved quickly, the gun held low, his breathing loud inside the mask. He could hear the fire above him, crackling, roaring, like a living thing trying to devour everything Seraphine had built. A shadow moved ahead. Elias fired twice, center mass, trained reflexes, and a vampire stumbled back. Not dead, but hurt enough to slow down. Elias kept moving. The safe room door was reinforced steel, designed to withstand anything. But someone had welded it shut from the outside, trapping whoever was inside. Through the intercom, Elias could hear Lila crying. "Daddy, Daddy, there's smoke. It's getting hot. I'm here, sweetheart. I'm getting you out." "You're too late," the voice came from behind him. A female vampire, young-looking but with ancient eyes. One of Kalitha's inner circle. "The room's airtight. They have maybe 15 minutes of oxygen left. And you," she smiled, showing fangs. "You have about 15 seconds. Elias turned and fired. She dodged, impossibly fast, and backhanded him into the wall. His ribs cracked. The gun clattered away. Kalith was weak, she hissed, stalking forward. He wanted to beat the queen honorably. "I just want her to suffer. What better way than killing everything she's learned to love?" Elias tried to stand. Couldn't. His ribs were definitely broken, maybe puncturing a lung. He was bleeding internally, probably dying. But Lila was on the other side of that door. He pulled himself along the floor, reaching for the welded seam. His fireproof gloves were already melting from the heat. The metal was scorching hot, and smoke filled the tunnel. The vampire laughed. Pathetic. Humans always. The ceiling above her exploded. Marble and steel and daylight came crashing down in a cascade of destruction. The vampire screamed as sunlight touched her, her skin igniting like paper. She tried to flee, but the debris pinned her down, and within seconds she was nothing but ash. Through the hole in the ceiling, silhouetted against the afternoon sun, stood Seraphine. She was burning. Daylight consumed her exposed skin, smoke rising from her arms and face. She wore heavy clothing and a wide-brimmed hat, but it wasn't enough. Being in direct sunlight was killing her. But she'd come anyway. "The door!" Elias shouted. "Lila's inside." Seraphine dropped through the hole, screaming as sunlight caught her legs. She hit the tunnel floor and stumbled, her burnt skin already trying to heal but not fast enough. She grabbed the welded door seam with her bare hands and pulled. Metal shrieked. The weld began to give way. "Get back." Seraphine's voice was raw with pain. "When this opens, fire will rush in. I'll shield them. You get them out. You'll die." "I'm already dying. Do as I say." The door ripped open. Fire and smoke billowed in like a dragon's breath. And Seraphine threw herself across the opening, using her own body as a barrier while Elias crawled inside. Lila and Mrs. Chun were huddled in the corner, Lila's face buried in the old woman's shoulder. The medallion around her neck glowed bright blue. Seraphine's protection, trying desperately to keep her safe. "Come on!" Elias grabbed them both, pulled them toward the door. Behind him, he could hear Seraphine gasping, could smell her burning flesh as fire and daylight consumed her simultaneously. They stumbled into the tunnel. Elias looked back. Seraphine was on her knees, her hat gone, flames catching her hair. A piece of debris, a metal beam from the ceiling, had fallen and impaled her through the chest.
Silver.
Someone had reinforced the estate with silver, knowing she might try to rescue them in daylight. "Go," she whispered.
Please.
"Save her. Not without you." Elias handed Lila to Mrs. Chun.
Run.
"Follow the tunnel to the pool house. Emergency services are coming." Then he went back for Seraphine. She was barely conscious, the silver spike burning her from the inside. Elias grabbed it with his gloved hands and pulled. The metal was hot enough to melt through the gloves, searing his palms, but he pulled anyway. The spike came free with a wet sound. Blood, too dark, almost black, poured from the wound. "You're an idiot," Seraphine mumbled.
"Months
"Aren't supposed to be heroes. Shut up and drink." Elias tore off his mask, pressed his wrist to her lips. "You need blood to heal. Take it." Can't stop. If I start, then don't stop. Take what you need. Her fangs sank into his wrist, and the world tilted. He felt his blood flowing into her, felt his strength draining, felt his heartbeat slow. Seraphine's wound began to close, slowly, too slowly, but healing. Above them, the ceiling groaned. More debris falling, more fire spreading. They had seconds before the whole tunnel collapsed. Seraphine pulled back from his wrist, her eyes clearing. Hold on to me. She wrapped her arms around him, one arm under his knees, one around his shoulders, and ran. Faster than should be possible for someone who'd just been impaled and burned. She ran through smoke and fire and falling debris, following the tunnel to the pool house where sunlight couldn't reach. They burst out into the pool area just as the main house collapsed behind them. The sound was deafening, crashing, roaring, a century of history reduced to rubble in seconds. Seraphine set Elias down gently, then collapsed beside him. Her skin was blackened, blistered, still smoking. Her beautiful auburn hair was mostly gone. She looked like something from a nightmare. She looked like she'd walked through hell. For him. Lila. Seraphine's voice was barely a whisper. Safe. Mrs. Chen got her out. Elias's vision was blurring from blood loss, but he forced the words out. You saved them. You saved us all. Good. Seraphine's eyes closed. That's good. Emergency sirens wailed in the distance. Marcus's voice shouting orders. Celeste organizing the security team. Human firefighters arriving, seeing a disaster they could never understand. Elias lay beside Seraphine in the ruins of the home she'd offered them, both of them broken and bleeding, and he realized something that should have terrified him. He was in love with a vampire queen. And from the way she'd sacrificed everything, her safety, her flesh, her life, to save his daughter, he thought maybe she loved him too. Even if neither of them had the courage to say it yet. Elias woke to the sound of monitors beeping and the antiseptic smell of hospitals. For a disorienting moment, he thought he was back at Cedar Grove, finishing another double shift. Then the memories crashed back, fire, blood, Seraphine's burnt flesh, the sensation of his life draining away into her mouth. Easy, a hand pressed him down. Marcus, looking exhausted, sitting in a chair beside the hospital bed. You've been unconscious for 18 hours. Severe blood loss, broken ribs, second-degree burns on your hands. The doctors wanted to know what kind of industrial accident you were in. Lila.
Fine.
Scared but physically unharmed. Mrs. Chen took her to a secure location, one of our properties downtown. She's asking for you every hour. Marcus leaned forward. She also keeps asking about the queen who got hurt saving us. Where's Seraphine? Marcus's expression darkened. In bad shape. Silver poisoning from the spike, massive burns from daylight exposure, and she lost too much blood. She's been unconscious since the rescue. The doctors, our doctors, vampire healers, say she needs massive transfusions to recover. Ancient vampire blood, rare and nearly impossible to obtain. Elias tried to sit up. Every muscle in his body protested. Then get it. Whatever it costs. It's not about cost. It's about availability. The only vampires old enough and powerful enough to help her are council members. And after she killed Caliph, half of them want her dead anyway. They're calling it natural selection, saying if she was weak enough to burn for humans, she deserved to die. Rage flooded through Elias, giving him strength he shouldn't have. She saved a child. She saved my daughter. And they're just going to let her die. Not all of them. Lady Vivian and a few others have provided some blood. But it's not enough. Seraphine needs, Marcus hesitated. She needs something more potent. More personal. What does that mean? She needs blood from someone she's bonded with. Someone whose life force is already tied to hers through the protection medallions and the feeding. Marcus met his eyes. She needs your blood, Elias. But you've already given too much. If you give more, you'll die. Elias was already pulling out his 4. Take me to her. Did you not hear what I said? You'll die. I heard you. Take me to her anyway. They argued for 10 minutes. Marcus threatened, reasoned, even tried to physically restrain him. But Elias had spent 8 years as a paramedic and 2 tours in Afghanistan. He knew how to disconnect medical equipment. He knew how to push through pain. And he knew, with absolute certainty, that he couldn't let Seraphine die. Marcus finally relented, leading him through the hospital, not Cedar Grove, but a private facility owned by House Morvain. They descended into levels that shouldn't exist according to the building's official blueprints. Down into the vampire medical wing where the lights were dim and the patients didn't breathe. Seraphine's room looked like a tomb. She lay on a medical bed surrounded by equipment that looked like a nightmare combination of medieval and modern. For lines ran into her arms, filled with blood so dark it was almost black. Machines monitored vital signs that Elias didn't recognize. Vampire physiology was different enough that the displays made no sense. But he didn't need machines to see she was dying. Her skin was gray as ash. Her breathing was shallow, rattling. The burns hadn't healed. They couldn't without proper blood. She looked ancient, like a corpse that had forgotten to stop moving. Seraphine. Elias limped to her bedside, took her cold hand in his bandaged one. I'm here.
I'm okay.
Lila's okay. You saved us. Her eyes fluttered, but didn't open. A vampire doctor, young-looking but with the bearing of someone centuries old, approached. Mr. Crane, I must advise against this. Your blood helped her before, because you were healthy. Now you're anemic, injured, running on maybe 60% blood volume. If she feeds from you in her current state, she won't be able to stop. She'll drain you completely. I understand. I don't think you do. You won't just die. You'll become something else. The amount of venom she'll inject, combined with the volume of blood she'll take, there's a chance you'll turn. Partially, at least. Enough to survive, but not enough to be fully vampire. You'll be something in between. Something we don't have a name for. Elias looked at Seraphine's gray face, remembered her throwing herself into daylight to save his daughter. Remembered her fighting for vampires to protect them. Remembered her saying, if anything happens to you, I'll have no reason to win this fight.
Do it, he said.
They prepared him like a sacrifice. Cleaned his arm, positioned him beside her bed, connected monitors to track his vitals. The vampire doctor stood by with emergency equipment, though Elias suspected nothing would save him if this went wrong. Marcus gripped his shoulder. Elias, are you certain? There's no coming back from this. I know, Elias smiled weakly.
Tell Lila.
Tell her daddy did something brave. And tell her the queen is a good person. I need her to know that. Then he pressed his wrist to Seraphine's lips. For a moment, nothing happened. Then her survival instincts kicked in. Her eyes snapped open, completely red now, no amber at all, and her fangs sink deep. The pain was immediate and overwhelming. Not just physical, though that was bad enough. It felt like she was drinking his soul along with his blood. Every memory, every emotion, every part of him flowing into her. He saw flashes of her life. Centuries compressed into seconds. A plantation in Georgia, 1847. A young woman dying of consumption. A vampire offering eternal life. The transformation. The decades of learning to be predator instead of prey. The loneliness. God, the loneliness of watching everyone you love grow old and die while you remained frozen in time.
Catherine.
Her vampire daughter, her companion, choosing sunrise over eternity. The ashes in the garden. Centuries of being alone after that, of never letting anyone close again. Until a desperate paramedic signed a contract to save his daughter. The monitor screamed. Elias's heartbeat dropped below 40. Below 30. Below 20. She's going to kill him, the doctor shouted. Pull her off. No, Marcus's voice was firm. Let them finish. Elias felt himself dying. Felt his consciousness slipping away like water through fingers. Distantly, he heard Lila calling for him. Heard Sarah's voice from beyond the grave, saying it's okay. You did good. You can rest now. Then Seraphine's voice cut through everything else. No.
You don't get to die.
Not for me. Not like this. She pulled back from his wrist, her mouth bloody, her eyes wild. And she bit her own wrist, tearing it open, and pressed it to his lips. Drink, she commanded.
Live.
I'm not losing you too. Vampire blood hit his system like lightning. Elias convulsed, his body rejecting it, accepting it, transforming. He felt his bones crack and reform. Felt his senses explode, suddenly hearing heartbeats 3 floors away, smelling blood from every patient in the building, seeing in perfect detail despite the dim lighting. Felt fangs pushing through his gums. What's happening? He gasped. You're turning, Seraphine said, her voice stronger now, color returning to her face as his blood healed her. But not fully. I stopped it partway. You'll be something new. Something between. The transformation lasted minutes that felt like hours. When it finally stopped, Elias lay gasping on the floor. He'd fallen off the bed at some point. Everything was different. Too bright, too loud, too intense. He looked up at Seraphine. She was sitting up now, the gray gone from her skin, the burns healing before his eyes. Still weak, still recovering, but alive. You're crying, he said, surprised. He'd thought vampires couldn't cry. I'm old enough that the rules don't always apply. She slid off the bed, knelt beside him, touched his face. You died for me. Actually died. Your heart stopped for 43 seconds. But I'm alive now. You're something now. I don't know what. Half human, half vampire. You'll need blood to survive, but you can walk in sunlight. You'll age, but slowly. You'll have some of our strength and speed, but not all. You'll be with you. Elias caught her hand. I'll be with you. That's all that matters. Seraphine's face crumpled. For the first time since he'd met her, she looked genuinely vulnerable. I can't keep doing this. Caring about people who leave.
Catherine Shaw's Sunrise.
Marcus will eventually tire of immortality. Everyone leaves. Everyone dies or walks away, and I'm left alone again. Then stop being alone. Elias sat up, pulled her close despite his shaking hands. I'm not going anywhere. I'm bonded to you now. Literally, apparently. And even if I wasn't, I'd stay anyway.
Why?
Because I love you, you idiot. The words came out rough, exhausted, but absolutely true. I don't know when it happened. Somewhere between you saving my daughter and you burning in daylight for us. Somewhere between feeling terrified of you and feeling terrified for you. But it happened. And I'm done pretending it didn't. Seraphine stared at him. Then, very quietly, I love you too. I have for weeks. I just didn't know how to say it. They kissed there on the floor of the vampire medical wing, both of them broken and healing, both of them transformed by blood and sacrifice. When they finally pulled apart, Marcus was pointedly looking at the ceiling. The council has been informed of your recovery, Your Majesty.
There.
Displeased but accepting. The challenge is over. House Morvain is secure. Good, Seraphine stood, helped Elias up. Prepare my estate in the country. The one with the enchanted windows. Elias and Lila will move there. With me. Your Majesty. That's not a request, Marcus. It's happening, she looked at Elias. If you want it. I want it, Elias said. But first, I need to see my daughter. And you need to keep your promise. What promise?
Dinner.
You, me, and Lila. Like a family. Seraphine smiled. A real smile. Warm and genuine. Like a family. Outside the window, sunrise was breaking. And for the first time in centuries, Seraphine watched it without fear. Because she wasn't alone anymore. 6 weeks later, the countryside estate looked like something from a magazine. Elias stood on the stone balcony watching Lila chase butterflies through the garden, her laughter carrying on the warm breeze. The burns on his hands had healed completely, one benefit of his new hybrid physiology. The fangs only appeared when he needed them, and he'd learned to manage the heightened senses that had initially overwhelmed him. He was different now. Not quite human, not quite vampire. Something in between. He was learning to be okay with that. Daddy, look. Lila pointed at a monarch that had landed on her finger. It likes me. It has good taste, Seraphine called from the doorway. She wore jeans and a simple white blouse, no queenly gowns, no ceremony. Just a woman enjoying a Saturday afternoon. The enchanted windows behind her filtered the sunlight, making it safe for her to stand there without burning. Lila ran over, the butterfly still perched on her finger. Can we keep it? Butterflies need to be free, sweetheart, Elias said gently. But you can visit it in the garden whenever you want. Okay, Lila carefully transferred the butterfly to a flower, then looked up at Seraphine with serious eyes. Are you going to marry my daddy? Elias choked on air. Seraphine's eyes went wide. Lila, that's not, we haven't, Elias stammered. Emma at school says when grown-ups live together and look at each other the way you look at each other, it means they're getting married. Lila crossed her arms. So are you? Seraphine knelt down to Lila's level, a smile playing at her lips. Would you be okay with it if we were? Lila considered this with the gravity only a 7-year-old could muster. Will you still read me bedtime stories? Every night. And can I still draw you pictures? I'd be disappointed if you didn't. And will you keep Daddy safe? Because he's always trying to save everybody and sometimes he forgets to be safe himself. Seraphine's expression softened. She glanced up at Elias. Yes. I'll keep him safe. I promise. Okay then, Lila threw her arms around Seraphine's neck. You can marry him. But I get to pick the cake flavor. After Lila ran off to explore more of the garden, Elias and Seraphine stood together on the balcony, watching her play. She's not wrong, Seraphine said quietly, about how we look at each other. No, she's not. I've never been married. In 800 years, I've never even considered it. She turned to face him. Marriage is a human institution. A promise of forever that humans can't actually keep because they die. I always thought it was beautiful and tragic and pointless. And now I'm standing here with a man who's partially immortal because he loved me enough to die for me, who moved into my home with his daughter and somehow made this cold, empty estate feel like a home. She took his hand. Now I think maybe forever isn't pointless if you spend it with the right person. Elias pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a ring, simple silver with a single sapphire that matched Lila's protection medallion. I bought this 3 weeks ago, he admitted. I've been carrying it around, trying to find the courage to ask. Then a 7-year-old beat me to it. Seraphine laughed, that genuine sound he'd grown to love. Are you asking, Elias Crane?
I'm asking, Seraphine Morvain.
Will you marry me? Will you let me spend whatever version of forever I have left with you? Will you let Lila and me be your family? She kissed him instead of answering with words, soft and deep, a promise sealed in touch rather than speech. When she pulled back, her eyes were bright with unshed tears.
Yes.
To all of it. Yes. He slipped the ring on her finger. It looked right there, like it had always belonged. Lila, Seraphine called. Come here, sweetheart. Lila came running, already bouncing with excitement. Did he ask? Did you say yes? I said yes. Can I be the flower girl? Absolutely, Seraphine laughed. But first, we need to discuss this very serious cake situation. That evening, they had dinner on the balcony as the sun set. Mrs. Chun had moved into the estate's guest house and had taken over the kitchen with enthusiastic authority. She served pasta with homemade sauce while Lila chattered about her new school, a private academy that asked no questions about the strange hours her father kept or the powerful woman who sometimes picked her up in a Mercedes. Seraphine didn't eat, but she sat with him anyway, sipping wine and listening to Lila's stories with genuine interest. Once, she caught Elias's eye across the table and smiled. Not her queenly smile, not the mask she wore for court, but something real and unguarded. This was his life now. Dinner with his daughter and his vampire fiancé. Living in a mansion with enchanted windows and security that included both human guards and vampire sentinels. being something between mortal and immortal, human and monster. It should have felt wrong. Instead, it felt like coming home. After dinner, they put Lila to bed together. Seraphine read from Charlotte's Web, Lila's favorite, while Elias sat on the edge of the bed, watching his daughter's eyes grow heavy. The thing about Charlotte, Lila mumbled sleepily, is she saved Wilbur even though she was just a spider. She wasn't big or strong, but she loved him, so she found a way. That's right, Seraphine said softly. Like how Daddy saved you, and you saved us, Lila yawned. Love makes people brave. After she fell asleep, they stood in the doorway watching her for a moment. She's wise for 7, Seraphine whispered. She's been through a lot. It grows you up fast. They walked to the master bedroom, their bedroom now, though it had taken Elias weeks to stop feeling weird about sharing space with a vampire queen. Seraphine changed behind the antique screen, emerging in silk pajamas that probably cost more than his old car. I spoke with the council today, she said, climbing into the massive bed. They've officially recognized you as my consort. It's unprecedented, a human or half-human, holding that position. But after everything that happened with Caliph, no one dared object. What does that mean exactly? Consort. It means you're under my protection permanently. It means any vampire who harms you is declaring war on House Morvain. It means you have authority to speak in my name during daylight hours. She pulled him down beside her. It means you're mine, officially and permanently. I was already yours. I know. But now everyone else knows too. They lay together in the darkness, Elias's heartbeat, slower now than it used to be, a steady rhythm in the quiet. Through the enchanted windows, moonlight filtered in, painting everything silver and shadow. Are you happy? Seraphine asked suddenly. Elias thought about his old life, the debt, the exhaustion, the constant fear of losing everything. Thought about the moment he'd signed a contract with vampires out of pure desperation. Thought about everything that had happened since. I'm happy, he said honestly. I'm terrified sometimes, and I'm still figuring out what I am now, and I miss being fully human.
But yeah.
I'm happy. Good, she curled against him, her cold skin against his warmth. Because I haven't been happy in centuries. Not like this. Not the kind of happy that makes you want to see tomorrow. Then we're even. They fell asleep like that. Vampire and hybrid, queen and former paramedic, 2 people who'd found each other through debt and desperation and somehow transformed it into love. Outside, the estate's gardens bloomed under moonlight. Security patrolled the grounds. In the guest house, Mrs. Chun hummed while doing dishes. In her bedroom, Lila slept peacefully, her dragon drawing pinned to the wall, her protection medallion glowing faintly around her neck. The debt was paid. The danger had passed. The queen had found her family, and the desperate father had found his home. Not in the way any of them expected. But perhaps that was the point. 3 months later, they married in the estate's garden at twilight, that perfect hour between day and night when both human and vampire could stand comfortably under the same sky. Lila was indeed the flower girl, wearing a purple dress she'd picked herself and scattering rose petals with solemn concentration. The ceremony was small. Marcus and Celeste stood as witnesses. Lady Vivian attended, bringing a gift of ancient vampire silver. A few human friends from Elias's old life came, believing they were attending the wedding of a successful consultant to his mysterious wealthy employer. None of them knew the truth. When Seraphine and Elias exchanged vows, the sun setting behind them and the first stars appearing overhead, they promised not forever, because forever was too vast a concept, but something simpler. I promise to see you. Not the queen, not the monster, not the legend. You. Every day. I promise to protect you. Not because I own you, but because loving you means wanting you safe and happy and free. They sealed it with a kiss as twilight deepened into night. Later, at the reception, Lila gave a speech she'd written herself. My daddy says that families aren't just born, they're built. We built ours with bravery and blood and love. And I think that's pretty cool. The assembled guests, human and vampire alike, agreed. As the evening wound down and guests departed, Elias stood on the balcony watching the city lights in the distance. Portland, where this had all begun. Where he'd been drowning in debt and desperation. Seraphine joined him, her wedding ring catching the moonlight. No regrets, she asked. None, he pulled her close. Well, maybe one. What's that? I wish I could have met you under different circumstances. Not as debtor and creditor.
Just
as people. Seraphine smiled. Would you have noticed me if we'd met normally? A paramedic and a vampire queen? Probably not, he admitted. I would have been too busy trying to survive. Then maybe the circumstances were perfect. Maybe we needed the debt and the danger and the desperation to become who we needed to be for each other. From inside, Lila called out, Are you coming? Mrs. Chen saved us cake. We're coming, Elias called back. He took Seraphine's hand, warm now where it touched his, their temperatures balancing each other, and they walked inside together. Into their home. Into their life. Into whatever eternity looked like for a vampire queen and her hybrid husband and the little girl who'd brought them together. No more debts. No more darkness. Just promises kept and a family built from impossible circumstances. Just love in the end. And that was more than enough.
The end.